All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show, and it is a Tuesday, and Tuesdays, I think, from here on for a while. Schlegs are going to be Tuesdays with Bill Bender of the Sporting News, so we're going to be pleased to have him join in. Mondays, they're going to be for our guy Lathan Ransom. We're trying to get you a nice little guest outline, if you will, throughout the week. A bunch of people, Schlegs, comment about maybe trying to get AJ on, so excited to try to get him in here and see if we can work him in throughout the week. I know he's got a lot of stuff going on with McAfee, but if we can get the Hawkman going, that would be tremendous. We're also going to do some of our big performers of the week, big performer for the Buckeyes, top performer nationally, then kind of biggest disappointment nationally for what we've seen and what's gone on. And we touched a little bit, Schlegs, on some of these national games, and we're going to get into some more Ohio State stuff as we go too. But there's some other national games and things we're going to dive into before we turn the page ultimately to next week. But before we get going today, are there any thoughts that you had, after marinating on this for another day of this Ohio State squad, of maybe what you'd like to see a little more of, what you need to see to feel better about coming out of this week and maybe heading into Western Michigan? Oh, and you're muted. You got to be a professional, Schlegs, and unmute that mic.
Hey, guess what? I didn't mute it. I mean, I don't know. I have no snare in my headphones. All I know is this CJ Hicks on the blitz, probably one of the best of the blitzing linebackers. I kind of see more packages for him moving down the road. We talked about Veli being able to run sideline to sideline. Thought Jordan Hancock played very, very well in this game. Obviously the mistakes, right? There were some things, right? The backward pass when you're in trouble. You alluded to how difficult it is to bring down Will Howard. That's a bonus, but also being, I would say safe with the football, protecting the football, because again, you have all these different weapons. The number one thing is just don't turn the ball over because of how good of a defense you have. You're basically a point guard being back there, move the chains. But another thing too, the D-line depth. And I'm talking from the outside in. And you have JT and Jack and KJ and Caden Curry. And then you had Edric Houston there at the end. They got the deflection. And then inside, right, Hero Canoe and Jason and Tyron. Boom. My man. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. And I trained him. I'm like, what are we talking about? Great dude. Anyways, just Tylo, blend them together. Why not? That should just be his nickname. Hey, Tylo, like, what's up? Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. Don't worry about it. But I just thought those guys all played very, very well up front. And somebody asked a question about rotating guys. I think 70 guys got in the game on Saturday. But the D-line rotation, that was one thing we talked a year ago about. But because of the depth at all of the positions, and even Mitch Melton was in there too. So, like, they just have a tremendous amount of depth, a tremendous amount of leadership. Was really, really excited about that.
Very pumped. And I'm glad you went there with the D-line depth, Schlegs, because it's something that, we've talked a little bit about with this team. I wanted to dive into it more. And last year, they didn't have a ton of sacks. They didn't have a ton of turnovers. Like, they didn't have the explosive plays. They were dominant defense, smothering, but not maybe as dynamic as you'd like them to be. And this year, one of the things that's pretty darn cool is the fact that this defense is more rugged up front. And what they've done, they go through the Rushman package where they're trying to get the 4 best rushers on the field. And when you have a guy like Jack Sawyer, who's big, who's physical, athletic, JT Tuimoloau, who's also a big, physical, athletic guy, and you can bump those guys inside. And what was interesting, I saw Jack get bumped in there, and he was having some success from like the 3 technique tackle position, but also a guy who they threw inside. And I love to see this because so oftentimes, Schlegs, and these edge rushers, when they come in, especially if you're tall, 6'5", 240, you need to put some weight on, 235. You don't really want to go down inside. You don't want to deal with it in there. But you saw Kenyatta Jackson go inside. And I watched him hit a spin move on that guard. It was incredibly impressive. Did a fantastic job with it. And so the fact you have Jack Sawyer and then you have Kenyatta Jackson also bouncing inside is pretty darn impressive, pretty special. So I feel like they've got a good continuity going on with this defensive line, and they're really going to start shining because they were playing 10, 11, 12 guys. Now, maybe you don't go that deep in some of the big games, but I think in the other ones, I think you'll be able to do that. And with those guys inside, very excited about it. Other side of the line of scrimmage, offensively, Schlegs, I think we need to find a way to become more efficient running the football. Got better as the game went on, but Donovan Jackson not being in certainly didn't help. But you want to see an offense that can really road grade when they need to. And they were able to do it in spurts, but I think you just want to see the consistency of it against a team like an Akron, a Western Michigan, a Marshall, Michigan State early in the year, that if you need to go get 5, you can almost always go get 5.
Yeah, and I think we've been watching, and we've always known you went at the line of scrimmage. Michigan won last year because they went at the line of scrimmage. Going into that USC game, it was all about LSU's offensive line. But then you also have Oregon, right, who everybody thought was like really physical and stuff, but yet they couldn't punch it in the red zone, couldn't run the football. You had the Florida State games, right, where, again, D-line up front, like one of the most physical. They could not stop the run for 2 weeks. You saw Notre Dame go on the road to Kyle Field with basically 5 new starters, 6 total games between them, and win the line of scrimmage. The game of football, though people pass it more often, it's still one up front. So to your point, Bob, yes, that's something that we need to continue to grow upon. Am I overly concerned right now with it from week 1? No, we still rush for 170 yards. But just the ability to go fast, hard, and violent and know who I got to pick up, like those things have to happen. But to your point with Donnie being out, that's a big missing piece there. So I think we'll get that corrected over the next 3 to 4 weeks as you hit the teeth of this schedule going to Oregon.
The good news is, though, is that Donovan, it's not a serious injury. He'll be back. I think it was more precautionary than anything. It's like, why play a guy in the first week when you really don't need to? Let him get 100% healthy so that they can be ready ultimately for this stretch run. So I'm glad we kind of touched on the lines there. It's one area that maybe you need a little bit of improvement. And I guarantee you, Chip Kelly, Justin Fry, they're sitting there with Ryan saying the same thing. Like, we need to be able to be more consistent in this. And you'll see that as they get players healthy, and also ultimately as they continue to work together. And Chip hones in with just on what they feel really good about as well. Want to make sure that we get to this, because it was something that we really didn't hit on a ton yesterday. Penn State, because they're getting the new AP rankings are coming out, and people have these FPI power indexes. And Penn State, to me, a lot of the stuff that I've seen is taking a big jump, and rightfully so. Michigan slid back a little bit, but Penn State's elevating their game, given the fact that Drew Aller was able to push the ball down the field. And Penn State's been really good for a number of years, Schlegs. Their issue has been when they go to push it, or they haven't been able to make those big plays. They were able to do that, be really dynamic on Saturday in Morgantown, even despite the delays and everything that came. And if they can do that, I think you're starting to talk about them as maybe one of the other top teams in the Big Ten, instead of being that like tier below what people thought Ohio State and Oregon was.
Yeah, push it real good, right? Like, you know, and again, we saw that from the Oregon. And the reason that we're making these judgments, and again, it's week 1, we're going to see jumps from week 1 to week 2. And obviously, we're going to get a real test of Michigan this week versus Texas at home. But when you saw Oregon struggle to rush the football, when you saw Michigan struggle to rush the football, and for them, it was literally, we can't even push the ball vertically, right? They were all short passes. Loveland was their main go-to guy to get 80-something yards receiving. Like, Edwards didn't really have that huge of a game. Orji as a quarterback, like, yeah, he run a little bit, but he was 1 for 3 with a 3-yard touchdown pass. Like, come on. So we're seeing as we get in here, right? Like week 1, who jumped up? Boom, Penn State, because Aller can actually push the ball down the field. They weren't 5-yard outs. They were vertical passing threats. They already have a running game. We already know that. They already have a defense that travels. We already know that. But then the question became, so the answer is, like, we know them. The surprising one was USC and how they were able to out-physical an LSU squad, number 13 in the country, basically in Vegas. You would think it'd be more USC fans. It wasn't. It was more Bengals or LSU fans, but they got the job done, and that's because of their quarterback and their ability to be balanced, but also they have an elevated defense from what we've seen in the past. So that's why those teams are making those jumps. Like, perception is reality. You struggle with Idaho, you're going to go down in week 1. That's just a fact. You struggle, who did Michigan have? Fresno State, you're going to go down, and especially when Penn State goes on the road to Morgantown and shows out. Like, that's just what it is week in and week out in the Big Ten.
Absolutely. Harrison Wallace III, Amari Evans, two big play receivers for Penn State. Both of them had 50-plus yard receptions, and that was without Julian Fleming even having to catch. Played a lot of snaps. He was open some. James Franklin spoke very highly of the former Buckeye who went over there in his final season. So I think they're going to be a much better team and a more complete team now than we've ever seen. All right, up next we got Bill Bender. Some big news over the weekend, huge games to discuss, and a huge one last night for former offensive coordinator at The Ohio State University. His reign wasn't very long, but he started off his career doing well at Boston College. Bill O'Brien. We'll talk a little bit about that with our guy Bill Bender, the Sporting News, coming up next.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
It's just, that's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yep.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
Anthony Schlegel just helped. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and now I'm pleased to be welcomed in by our guy, Bill Bender of the Sporting News, joining us here on Tuesday. Talk a little national scope of everything that's been going on. Bill, I want to start with this because last night I thought it was going to be a redemptive story for Mike Norvell and Florida State. They're at home. They're down there in Tallahassee. And you should have been in a situation where you could kind of right some wrongs, and maybe people forgot week 0. And I saw a Boston College team that came out that literally looked better, that looked more talented and a better coach team than the Florida State Seminoles.
Well, I had to watch it in Spanish because of this ESPN Disney thing. Grant was able to go into our app and figure it out, and then we were laughing. I was like, well, you are in junior high now. You do have to learn this language, so let's learn it together. Then we pressed mute. But Boston College controlled time of possession, 39 minutes. Boston College ran the ball down their throat. And you mentioned it, Bill O'Brien hasn't lost his touch as a college football offensive coordinator. I know the notion on social media is to pile on DJU, but, I mean, he's part of a symptom of what's going on at Florida State right now. Quite honestly, guys, you could probably answer this better than me. Who's more miserable right now, the Florida Gators or the Florida State Seminoles? If you would have told me they were going to be 0-3 after week 1 combined, I wouldn't have taken that bet.
Yeah, and Bill, when we talk about that game, I mean, we just, regardless of the quarterback play, which, it goes back to Saban's thing. It doesn't matter how much you pay guys, like they still got to go out and produce. But really what surprised me the most was just their inability to be physical up front.
Oh, for sure, especially on the defensive side. And again, Boston College, great play calling, great keep away in the first quarter. They looked like the better team, much like Georgia Tech, which I was texting back and forth with my editor last night. And I said, what are we going to do when the ACC championship game is Boston College and Georgia Tech, and that game might take an hour and a half the way those two teams run the football. But it speaks to the wide open nature of the ACC. And Anthony, you make a great point. Sometimes with first-year transfer quarterbacks, it takes time, and it's a mixed bag. I mean, DJU to Will Howard to, right now they're really high on Cam Ward, and he looked great throwing the ball down the field for the Hurricanes. But when you're a first-year transfer in a system, I guess it takes different amounts of time, right?
Absolutely does. And you know, that's the thing too, when you have somebody transfer to Syracuse, right? And again, the coaching that McCord got at Ohio State definitely helped him when he went there. And I think the same thing for Cam Ward. And again, it's about the system, it's about the fits, but it's also about the product that you know that you have coming in, right? So if we've seen somebody not be able to be accurate, not be able to move the ball vertically, like that's kind of is what you have. Kyle had a great career here at Ohio State, just needed a fresh start. So guess what? Great job at Syracuse, but still underlying, it's like, it's kind of like the pro theory, right? Like Bob knows this, like, oh, we're going to go get this guy, but this guy's already shown his true colors the first 5 years that he was in the league. Just because you're a different coach and you think you can overcoach some of those things doesn't mean you're actually going to be able to do it.
Right. And on that note, happy for McCord having the debut that he had. Sad that it was against my Bobcats because they, took it to Ohio University over the weekend, but he played well. And what I was saying about Cam Ward is one of the things I look at with all quarterbacks, you get on Pro Football Focus, you go through some statistics. One of my go-tos is deep passes. 5 of 7 on passes of 20 yards or more. He really got the ball down the field for them. I know the Hurricanes are feeling great about that. And I don't know if it speaks more to how good Miami is. I think they are very good in the ACC, or what a mess potentially Florida could become. Because I was talking to my editor through this too. I don't believe in hot seats anymore. They'll just fire you, right? If let's take October 5th, for example. If Florida loses to UCF on October 5th, which could happen, and Gus Malzahn and KJ Jefferson come in there and win, would they fire him on the spot? I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens. You have a bad game now, they'll just get rid of you.
Absolutely. And, we saw a lot here in the first week 0, a little bit of Florida State thought they might bounce back. You're talking, Bill, football Thursday to Monday. Thursday seems like a distant memory, an afterthought as we finally try to decompress and absorb everything. What were some of the biggest things that you observed over this 5-day football fest that we call Labor Day weekend?
Well, I think there's a clear top 3. And it might surprise you a little bit. I think it's Georgia, and they still look very fast on defense. What they did to Clemson was what they do to a lot of teams, and it shows that Kirby's got a machine there. Ohio State took a little bit. I really think when Ryan Day said they weren't having fun, they started having fun in the second half. You saw the difference. I thought they were tight in the first half. I thought Joe Moorhead drew up a couple good plays. That's what he does. But once the Buckeyes reality set in, they played well. And I'll throw Alabama in there. I know they played Western Kentucky, but I think Jalen Milroe, Kalen DeBoer, sometimes when you refurbish an offense, there's going to be good things that happen. I don't think they're going away by any stretch. And to me, those would be the top 3 teams in the country, with the next one being Texas. And we'll find out what they're about when they go to Ann Arbor. I know a lot of people are predicting blowout there. I'm not quite there.
Yeah, we're talking, Ohio State, and I love those rankings that you just gave, because that's really what was seen on the field. What are you excited about? What are you concerned about? What questions do you have right now for Ohio State coming out of week 1, going into week 2 versus Western Michigan?
You know what? I think they're going to put up a big number this weekend, just because of that slow start. I think Ryan Day can use that to make sure they come out, start a little fast. I mean, everybody's excited about Jeremiah Smith right now, and how can you not be? 6 catches on 8 targets. One of the things that struck me is for all these Ohio State first-round receivers, Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Harrison, they kind of had an indoctrination period, getting used to play at Ohio State. This guy's coming in day 1 and making unbelievable catches. The running game's solid. Defense is nasty. Defense is experienced, nasty. Didn't give up a touchdown. I know Jack Sawyer was talking about shutouts last week and how that's a goal. They gave up 2 field goals. So I think they come out this week a lot better, put up a big number against another MAC opponent, and keep it rolling, not get complacent as the schedule starts to heat up.
You talked a little bit about Florida and Florida State struggles. Miami looking pretty darn good, though, against Florida. Are they the team to beat now in the ACC after watching, a decent little sample size the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, and their schedule's open. They only have Florida State on there. They don't play another ranked team for a while. Virginia Tech losing to Vandy was startling, and that was supposed to be a big September game for Miami. So I think with Cam Ward, their physical running game. But with the ACC, you're always susceptible to that, kind of double take result. That is what they're going to have to avoid over the next 2 months.
Yeah, as we look at that, you talked about the ACC, and really right now, it's Clemson. We got to see how they bounce back. but it's really just Miami. Who else? And you got the Big 12. Are we actually like, I mean, I know it's week 1, but right now the road that it's looking is like those are one-team conferences.
Right. I think they'll both be one-bid leagues. I think the rest of the scramble, especially
bumpy.
with Notre Dame winning in A&M,
Right.
I think Notre Dame kind of lightly pencil them in. If they take care of business, then you get 4 SEC and perhaps 4 Big Ten teams, and there's your playoff field. And go ahead.
Well, I think it's interesting with Notre Dame is they had something great and terrible happen for them. It ended up being good since they beat A&M. They looked good doing it. Florida State looking not great kind of eliminates another potential road bump. But then also they have USC at the end of the season, which they look a lot better now than I think people believe they were going to be. So then they also have that extra data point. So they get a nice 10-week kind of cruise. And then all of a sudden playing what could be a top 10 matchup there at the end of the season.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering if we put USC in the top tier of the Big Ten now. If they play defense like that, which was solid, they got off the field when they needed to. And if Miller Moss does what he does, and I think in Lincoln Riley's offense, sometime it's just about a quarterback that can get the ball off on time. He's a great play caller. Some of those passes and catches were amazing. I thought USC showed a lot of guts winning against LSU. And yeah, I mean, I heard you guys talking about Penn State. They were impressive. Oregon, Michigan, not as much, but still capable of beating those teams as well. So that top 5 in the Big Ten is pretty darn good.
Who else? Pinning it. Sorry.
Well, we got to take a break here, Schlegs. But you mentioned Oregon there. Obviously, their struggles with Idaho, Michigan. We'll break those teams down with Bill Bender, the Sporting News, here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
It's just, that's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Watch on Bally's, YouTube. Please like, subscribe, leave your comments. We love getting in and digging in on those as well. But I want to remind you, protect what matters most with Export Carbon Fiber mouth guards, the world's safest mouth guard designed for all ages and endorsed by the Bobby Carpenter Show. Want to protect that grill. We would want to protect Schleg's noggin, but hey, you know what? Who knows if there's anything left there to protect. Make sure you go to exportguards.com/pages/Bobby. Save 15%. Get protected today.
Hey, Bobby, I want to mention this too. Like I did this, guys. So I went in Dr. Zandy's office. They did a 3D rendering. You can also do a mold, and then boom, you got a carbon fiber mouthpiece. I'm telling you what, if we had this in our day, Bob, my teeth would look way better. I had to wear braces like when I was done and get some teeth pulled. But guess what? Now I'd have great looking teeth back then. Anyways.
Perfect. There we go. Looking good, Schlegs. Hey, talk with that thing in. Sound crystal clear. Looking good. So as we get Bill Bender back in here, we're excited here to talk a little bit. We're talking about the tiers of the Big Ten. Ohio State, I think people put Oregon up there, then maybe a little drop, Penn State, Michigan, then maybe a drop, Iowa, potentially USC, getting Nebraska, Wisconsin. After this first week, though, Bill, you're talking about potentially putting USC up there with Ohio State and maybe Penn State as well. Does this revamped Penn State offense with Drew Aller pushing the ball down the field, it seems like something we haven't seen since they had Allen Robinson back there, Jahan Dotson, 7, 8, 5 years ago.
Second-year starter makes a difference. They threw the knockout punch in that game before the weather delay when he hit the 50-yard pass to Barnes, throws a touchdown to Wallace on the next play. And I looked at my son Grant and I said, that game's over. And only they had to sit through a 2-hour weather delay. I'm sure those fans were miserable because Penn State took care of business on the road. And I think they have a lot of pieces that make them interesting, the same pieces that make USC interesting. For me, and we talk about all these transfer quarterbacks, Drew Aller took a lot of heat last year for how poorly he played against ranked teams. And this was at least the first sign in showing that they are going to be a threat to win the Big Ten. And they've got a quarterback situations that's settled, and they don't play Oregon or Michigan. So they're absolutely going to be in the mix for the Big Ten championship game. And that game at the Coliseum between USC and Penn State is going to be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, we got Colorado, Nebraska. Big time game this week. Who you got, Bill?
Nebraska. Dylan Raiola is a program changer. And it's early, and he's going to have to grow, and there will be bumps. There was a play against UTEP where he stared down the receiver too long and got clocked by a defensive tackle and, those kind of things. But, early in that game, they faced a 2nd and 30. 2nd and 30 at Nebraska, you figure they'll probably punt here. 2 straight dimes, and one that, I know he looks like Mahomes, but he made a throw that really looked like Mahomes. And I think they've wanted that game for a year since Colorado got embarrassed. I will say this, in terms of entertainment value, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Raiola, Coach Prime, Matt Rule trying to push another Big Ten team in there. There's a lot of pieces to that game that are going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to watch it, but I like Nebraska to finally win one of those close games, and we'll enjoy watching it. I don't know what reality TV show I could compare Colorado to, but I know that we all enjoy watching it.
Is that game going to be a measuring stick for Dylan a little bit against Shedeur early on? And then also, how much do you think we'll be able to tell about Nebraska from that, Bill? I mean, could we justify by watching this that if they go 2-0, that they could maybe be 8-win, potentially 9-win team? They have a fairly manageable schedule.
Yeah, and Nebraska came into the Big Ten expecting to compete with Ohio State and Michigan for Big Ten championships, and they haven't been able to do that. But when you bring in a kid like Dylan, and you could see the confidence of the entire offense with him, they didn't turn the ball over. That was the big thing. I mean, -17 turnover ratio the last year, and that was talked about all offseason and all these one-score losses. So I don't know if they're ready for first tier yet. I want to see how their defense does against Colorado, because I'll say this about Shedeur Sanders. We can make all the jokes about Colorado we want. He hangs in the pocket. He makes some great throws. He has some great receivers. They still can't run the ball, and their defense is still suspect, and their coaching decisions can be bad at times. And that's why I said they're the best reality TV show in college football right now.
Oh, they're tremendous to watch. They've been a lot of fun. Yeah. Sorry about Schlegs. We talked about Oregon. I wanted to circle back to that. They played Idaho 24-14, and it's okay to start slow. I mean, Ohio State started slow, but I kept watching and waiting for them to put the hammer down. They moved the football. They didn't really turn it over. Like, if you look at the box score, you're trying to figure out how that game was as close as it was. They didn't convert in opportune times, got bogged down a little in the red zone. How are they still an elite team to you? I mean, is this something that can be fixed? And when do we need to see that by? Because they're on that same timeline as Ohio State for that early October showdown.
Yeah, and how do you complete 41 passes and 380 yards? And the answer, I guess, is they didn't run the ball that great. And Dylan Gabriel wasn't really a threat in the running game. So that's something to watch. And they have a tricky one against Boise State this weekend, because Ashton Jeanty just ran for 6 touchdowns and 267 yards. And by the way, look this up this morning. Boise State and Oregon have played 3 times, and the Broncos have won all of those games. So they should have Oregon's full attention this weekend. I think fun. Remember the one where LeGarrette Blount? Everybody says that, right? So I think that's a fun late night game where we're going to learn a lot about Oregon. But the one thing with Boise State, they gave up a ton of points too. That could be that shootout we're looking for.
Was Chip Kelly the coach there then for that, or was he just the OC? Or was it still Bellotti?
I think that was Chip Kelly as a head coach, because I remember that Boise State team was fighting for respect. And it was one of those ugly games for Oregon, and a lot of fun. And I remember the viral reaction afterward. It's funny that all 3 of us know when you say Boise State and Oregon, LeGarrette Blount's the first thing we say.
Yeah, and honestly, great minds think alike, Bob, because that's exactly where I wanted to go in this game, because Boise can actually run the football and score. Oregon better be ready, because, yeah, it's one thing to move the ball down the field. It's a whole other thing to be able to score points, which they didn't get to do against Idaho. And Boise knows how to run. They're gonna go old school, trust the ball, run the football, eat up the clock, make you drive, hold you to a field goal. That's how they're gonna have to win. I'm gonna go then now to Texas, Michigan, based on what you saw from Michigan. And we're talking like they needed a pick six at the end of the game to make it 30-10. Like FAU was not FAU, Fresno State. Because I was thinking about the Fighting Tom Hermans, because we didn't give them enough credit. They honestly could have beat Michigan State in that game, but Michigan, now Texas coming in. Texas, Quinn Ewers, they're throwing the ball all over the field, right? Like they're hitting the middle, they're hitting the outs, they're hitting the shorts. Like they can do it, and they got a defense. What are you expecting from Michigan on what you saw week one going down to week two with Texas at home?
And they're going to need better quarterback play. They're going to need to answer the question. And I think you almost have to go with one of them. Is it Orji? Is it Warren? They're going to need to run the football better. And I think they need 3 turnovers to win the football game because, like you said, Quinn Ewers and the ability to throw it all over the place. I looked this up today. He's faced 4 top 30 defenses in his career. He's thrown 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, 65% completion percentage. They've been there, done that, beat Alabama. So it's a fun matchup. It's a good measuring stick. One thing with Texas, I don't know that they'll have a lot of success running the ball. That Michigan interior defense is really good. But if Michigan can't get that offense going, you saw it in Clemson, Georgia last week. You can do that for a half. You can't do it for 4 quarters.
Yeah, as good as they are, I mean, you've got to get some reprieve. You have to move the ball. Our defense will slowly break down. Bill, you're one of the best. We appreciate your time. You're very generous with it, as always. You have a great Tuesday, and hopefully we'll talk again next week.
Hey, this is so much fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Bill Bender, Sporting News, one of the best guys you'll find. Does a great job. Go check his stuff out there at Bill Bender 92 on X. Puts a lot of great content out that you're going to find if you love college sports. Does some NFL and a little college hoops as well. All right, coming up next, we've got our headlines. We've got a little list. Some top performers nationally for the Buckeyes. Who disappointed? Find out which Schlegs and I think here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, we got our headlines today. Headlines brought to you by Affinity Whole Health, the personalized healthcare that you're looking for. Affinity Whole Health, they offer personalized treatment plans to help people who are struggling. You got weight loss, if you're looking for low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep, a variety of issues. They can help you get back to being your best version of yourself. They can help you with all of it. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance to help you safely support and reach your health goals. And they've got Ohio covered, folks. With locations in Cleveland and in Columbus. You don't have to wait any longer. Set up a free consult by going to affinityWholeHealth.com. It's affinityWholeHealth.com. The best part is you go in the office, they get the plan for you, and they mail the shipments directly to your home. So it's like you can go do whatever you want and have more time to run around, pump some weights, and look like a sweaty meatball like you as well. So my guy Schlegs wearing his mouth guard during that. What we're going to do now, I think we're going to do this every Tuesday in our headlines.
Honestly, I love these. These are great. You and I would have loved these, Bob.
Oh, you sound pretty good talking to them. I mean, you have half a slur anyway, Schlegs. I can't tell if you're half in the bag usually on this, but I think that you're good and ready to go. But we're going to do our big performer for Ohio State, a big performer nationally, and then kind of our biggest disappointment of the week. So I want to start with my big performer from Ohio State. And I went first. I stole Schlegs' guy, but it'll all be taken care of, folks. I promise you of that. And going a little off the radar, everybody wants to go with J.J. Smith. I mean, you could go Sonny Styles. You can go with some of the defensive guys. Listen, folks, there's a lot of these to throw around. But I'm going to go with someone that's a little under the radar, and I'm going to go with my guy Brandon Ennis, because the punt return is a weapon. It's an opportunity there to change or hidden yardage. It doesn't come into play on the total yards of passing and rushing, but it helps set up your field position. And when you're closer to scoring, well, guess what? It's easier to score. Imagine that. It's a novel thought. So having Brandon Ennis in there, I believe he had 60 yards, Schlegs, and punt returns.
Yeah.
Had one real nice one. He was courageous in fielding the ball, helped also save some from getting some bounces. He had 77, 75 yards last year. Brandon Ennis, big performer for me, kind of a sneaky under-the-radar guy. Who you got, Schlegs?
Yeah, I got Lathan Ransom. First off, great pick with Brandon. He's a dog mindset, right? When you're back there, like, oh, I'm going to return one. I'm going to help my team. To your point, I got Lathan Ransom. Boom. Guest on the show. Love him. But 9 tackles, 2 TFLs, fumble recovery for a touchdown. Boom. Lathan, great dude. Great to see him back on the field. Played extremely well. Big things for him this his senior year.
Yeah, going to be exciting for him. Had to get him because he's going to be, I think, a weekly guest for us on Monday. Went through the injuries last year, Schlegs. That stinks. It's no fun. And when you get back out there, for him to come out, Schlegs, like you said, every time you come out, you like to show out, and you bring your dough out, and maybe some other things, Schlegs. We're not sure. Who is that? Juicy J or who?
Yeah, stack it vertical, count sideways, man. That's all it is.
Stack them vertical, count them sideways. That's all you need to know, folks. He's giving you the knowledge right there. But kudos to our guy Lathan Ransom. And I'll pull the Woody Hayes line. Better person than he is a player, and he's one heck of a football player. So one of my favorites, and excited to have him have him with us as well. All right, going to go to my national big performer. And this was tough because I'm looking at Drew Aller. There's other guys out there. You look at Miller Moss. You can look at some of these other teams. I got to go with former Ohio State offensive coordinator, long may he reign, Bill O'Brien. I sat down last night. I wasn't sure what I was going to watch. I was hoping that they would be able to hang in the game. But my man Billy O went out there and put together an unbelievable performance. It's like I'm watching out a half. The guys are losing their mind. He keeps running just the cut split with the X receiver, a slant in the back wheel out of the backfield. It wasn't all that different than the 2021 Ohio State Oregon game when they just kept running the crack toss. This is kind of just the pass version of that. And I'm like, get out of man coverage. And my kids are sitting there. My boys are like, hey, what do you mean get out of man? He goes, it looks like they're playing zone. I go, the problem is they don't know what they're playing. And Bill O'Brien getting a big win on a national stage to start off his career at Boston College. And, he moved back to Boston. Schlegs, family things, health for his son. I get it. I'm happy for him. Tremendous dude. Would have been good at Ohio State. Who you got?
Yeah, would have been really good at Ohio State. And his guys played extremely hard. And as a matter of fact, in the broadcast, they talked about the camp that they put them through. And the other thing, too, that stood out to me in that broadcast was in the portal. He comes in very, very late. He's only been there for 7 months. Like, he was late in the whole transfer portal and all that. Nobody left. That was a big-time deal for me. They believed in him going to BC. I chose Miller Moss simply for the fact of you got a minute 51 left to go win the game. We've talked about it. He's coming in, filling in for a Heisman Trophy winner, and he proved it, right? I mean, he was 27 of 36, 379, a touchdown in Vegas. Let them down. They end up scoring. Like, I don't know why they parting of the Red Sea, score a touchdown. But anyways, great performance by him. Happy that USC is in the Big Ten. I think they're more Big Ten ready than anybody else that came in from the Pac-12.
Well, I mean, Schlegs, you could argue that they, I guess, might be gas station ready with how they looked. All right, my biggest disappointment, and you know what, Schlegs, I hate doing this because they were a team that I loved coming out. I loved them last year. I liked Mike Norvell a lot. But, dude, crying Florida State. There's only been one other team that's went, I think, 13-0 during a regular season and then started 0-2 the next year. That was Western Michigan. I think before PJ Fleck went, if I'm not mistaken, before he ultimately left. Disappointing to see. You lost to Georgia Tech. You thought you could right the ship. You're bringing Boston College at home. And it's like you're going for it when you're down 14-6 on your own 45 at a 4th and 5, the first possession of the second half. I'm like, Mike, chill out. You don't have to win the game here. You might lose it. So you know what happens? DJU freaking drifts off his back foot, chucks up a hand grenade, which is 4th down. So I say appreciate it, throw it. But try to throw it to your guy. It gets picked and run back to the 5. What are we doing? Florida State's, they're out of it. They played their way out of the opportunity to compete. And frankly, Schlegs, they'll be lucky if they go 7-5 now.
Yeah, the only way they can get in is that they win the conference. I mean, there's going to have to be a lot of changes.
0-2 in the conference, though.
Well, I know. It's terrible. I don't know. A lot of people are, hey, it's the ACC, like you never know. But I would say this, too. The real one that you should have put up on there was the FSU fan that said he's going to eat a cup full of dog crap if Florida State loses this game and then consequently delete his entire account. I wonder how that guy's feeling. Hey, all the kids listening out there, everybody has social media. What you put on there stays on there. It's called screenshots. People know. So be really, really careful with what you put on social media because somewhere down the road, this guy's going to have to eat a solo cup full of dog crap. Mine, because you took FSU, which was, it's unequivocally nationally, that is the biggest disappointment from week 0 to week 1. But I'm going to say in the Big Ten, I'm going to go with Oregon. And I only say that because they're ranked 3. Could he easily put Michigan on there the way their offense looked. But I put Oregon because you have Idaho at home, 380-something yards of passing. You can't punch it in. You win 24-14, and now you got Boise, and it's like you're not like right there because everybody's talking about, they might win the conference, and everybody's saying that. Like, we obviously saw what Ohio State played a little tight, boom, 52-6, like total team win. That did not look very, very good. I watched the whole thing on the 4 TV Doomajink. I was watching it. My wife's like, I'm going to bed because this is terrible. I'm like, I'm following them all. And I was definitely interested because UCLA looked terrible. They're at Hawaii. Like that 16-13. I should have put them in there. But no, Oregon because they're number 3. We got to see a lot of improvement going into week 2. Hopefully we do. But that's who my biggest disappointment is.
All right. And before we get out of here, Schlegs did some of the last segment with a mouth guard on. I'm going to remind you, protect what matters with Export Carbon Fiber mouth guards. Had that thing right in his beak, the world's safest mouth guard. It is designed for all ages and endorsed by my guy Anthony Schlegel and the Bobby Carpenter Show. You want to go check it out. Safe XGuard, exportguards.com/pages/Bobby. Save 15% and get Protect Today. All right, coming back up, we got our tailgate talk. You're going to love it. Dove into the comments. They're all over the place, as always, here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Kentucky Derby as Authentic takes them around the far turn. Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, tis the Law. Here's the wire. Authentic has won the Kentucky
All right, Schlegs, here we go. Getting into the tailgate talk. You can always throw comments in there. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment. I like to dive through the comments, Schlegs. One of them talked about from yesterday's show, the game can reduce to a shallow offensive line, still not up yet to speed. You can see the double team could get established. We're a little bit better slipping up to the linebacker, not that much. There was a lot of shade being thrown at the tight ends, how 0 catches which they really weren't targeted that much. Said they struggled with blocking. Counter to that, someone said number 89, who was Will Kazmarek from Ohio University, transferred in, did a great job blocking. That's what a lot of this stuff is centered on. I'm going to give you the floor if you want to talk a little about the tight ends, because I thought they did a pretty good job. Just because they weren't involved in the pass game, that doesn't mean they didn't play well.
No, I mean, they only had 3 targets. And again, guys, hold the check yourself before you wreck yourself. You got J.J. Smith, Emeka Mbuka, Carnell Tate, Hugh, Trey, tight end. They're also moving in other quarterbacks. They're not going to get a ton of targets, and the game is going to dictate how many targets they get. So for that, I don't really care how many they get. I guarantee you they don't care how many they get. They want to be fanatical about running the football. I actually lean on the other person. I think they had 4 or 5 pancakes in their blocking. I thought it was better. And part of those things too are when I pull, if I am a backside guard and the backside tight end in the wing position, and we both pull, the guard has to pick up the first guy. I come through on the second. If he doesn't pick up his guy and he knows where he's going, then you are going to be a little confused as to who you pick up. So those are things that they got to get corrected, no doubt. But to say they didn't do a good enough job blocking, just watch ball a little bit before you make those type of comments. And guess what? I guarantee you, Coach Bailey, he don't care how many catches they get. They want to run the damn football. That's number first. If you run the football, it will open up the passing game to you. You got to earn it. And I think the offensive line will be significantly better next week.
Yeah, Donovan Jackson being there is going to help. Having a week of film is going to help. The tight ends like Kazmarek, he got overthrown a little bit early in the game. I think they're going to continue to work in G. Scott. I think they'll get Jelani Thurman in there. These tight ends are good, though. They're good. Some of them are young. They all kind of provide a little bit different element to it. And then with Donovan Jackson coming back, like I said, the offensive line going to be a little bit better. Schlegs, I love this comment, though.
Okay.
The D-line and LB should be graded on how many bleeping ice bags the other team needs during the game. Absolutely awesome to see the other players say no mas. And quarterback Finley, a number of guys, they were getting beat over the head. It was a rough day for them, to say the least. So this team is tough. The defense is tough. Offensive line can continue to improve. Keep shooting your comments to us. Believe me, I love them. There's a question in there that's even better about how we can try to figure out to get it answered. We'll do that for you. But coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show, give you our parting thoughts before we go on to Wednesday here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
It's just, that's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
All right, Schlegs, we got about a minute left. Working on some stuff for tomorrow's show. I might see if we can get our guy AJ on. Schlegs, how's that sound? If we can try to
bring him, man.
Get the Hawkster on Wednesday here. We'll see what we can do with that. Get a great slate of guests that we're going to have and fun show. What are your parting thoughts, sir, in the last minute?
Parting thoughts. I love that last comment about ice bags for the guys. Just keep hitting them, abuse them, affect the quarterback, affect them all. Hey, that's their fault they showed up at Ohio Stadium. That's on them. They want to come play football against us, hit them and hit them often. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive stuff. They brought the pain. I love the defense, what they were able to do. And this is a team that under Ryan Day, offense has been very, very good. It's had some defensive woes. The bringing in an addition of Jim Knowles a couple years back, we've seen how this defense has been able to evolve, how it's continued to improve. And hopefully it continues to do that, Schlegs, as it moves along. I'm excited to see it. I think we're going to continue to see this evolution, aggressive, fast, and physical. That's going to be tremendous. So thank you for tuning in. We'll get you some more stuff tomorrow. Keep coming strong on the Bobby Carpenter Show.